In this video, we are going to talk about the Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT skills training module that is devoted to developing interpersonal effectiveness skills. Human beings are social animals, and this is especially true for those who are suffering from borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Even if we are not extroverts, good, loving relationships can play such an important role in our life and give us much needed emotional stability. The opposite is also true. Bad, toxic, and unstable relationships can lead to more instability and trigger self-destructive behavior that can spiral out of control. Social isolation and a lack of the right kind of relationships can also be bad because feelings of loneliness will just reinforce feelings of depression and unworthiness. Relationships take work, and while they must be cultivated and nurtured, they can be destroyed in a single conversation or through a hasty, ill-formed text message. In many ways, relationships are like a garden, so knowing how to tend the soil and encourage the plants to grow are important skills. This is why interpersonal effectiveness skills play a crucial role in DBT. There are some people who are naturally so good at relationships, they can make it seem so effortless and innate that we think they possess some kind of social magic. Fortunately, relationships do not necessarily arise through such magic. There are skills that can be taught and learned that will help anyone be more socially effective. One of the most important things we often need to learn in order to maintain healthy relationships is to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, one based on self-respect, because if we think we are worthless, others will sense this. So the words and self-talk that flow around inside our minds, the way we treat and value ourselves, is very important. Dr. Marsha Linehan, the founder of DBT, has broken this down into 3 general categories. First, we must be able to ask for what we need. Second, it is important to know when, where, and how to say no. And third, we must learn how to negotiate our way through conflict without harming a relationship. She has come up with an acronym for these 3 crucial skill sets. FAST, F-A-S-T. FAST skills are designed to help us learn how to act and make choices within relationships that build our self-respect. These involve becoming aware of our own priorities, goals, and values, and then holding firm to these in our relationships with others so that we do not get abused and misused. Give skills teach us healthy ways to focus on others. They help us to treat others the way we want to be treated, by showing interest, care, and respect, and by learning to validate others. Dear man skills allow us to stay focused on ourselves in order to make sure our wants and needs are met, while also learning to say no, set boundaries, and negotiate with others so that we do not come last. They are also designed to make us feel more confident and capable of ensuring that our relationships are mutually beneficial. The FAST skills. These skills are designed to help us make choices that build and reinforce our sense of self-respect and self-worth. If you want others to respect you, begin by respecting yourself. So if we are filled with feelings of worthlessness and self-loathing, we are far more likely to allow others to walk all over us. FAST stands for fair, apologies not needed, stick to values, truth, and accountability. Now the F in FAST stands for fair. Be mindful in our dealings with others, recognizing that one of the characteristics of the mindful state is that we assume a non-judgmental stance and are open and accepting. Mindfulness's wise mind should also come into play when we are interacting with other people, so avoid the extremes, because if we are too hot, we will scare people away, and if we are too cold, they will never come near us. So we must strike the right balance between our needs and theirs. This dialectic can be extended to others. There are some people who will just take and take, and others who will give and give, and both types are to be avoided. All too often, those who suffer from BPD are so filled with feelings of self-loathing and self-hatred that they either push others away or become doormats and allow themselves to be taken advantage of because they believe it is what they deserve. So we should find friends who live more in the middle and who are capable of maintaining a balanced relationship and attending to both our needs and theirs. Another key, one we have mentioned before, is to learn to respond to others, especially in close relationships, rather than blindly reacting. Some people do not listen to what we are saying because they are formulating their response and waiting for an opportune moment to take over the conversation. Others only listen and never speak up. So we must strive to live between the extremes. The A of FAST stands for apologies not needed. Some people apologize when another person bumps into them. It is their default position. They apologize for their behavior and point of view and adopt the poise of a martyr, suffering for things that they do, suffering for things that they do not do, and even suffering because of imaginary slights. We all have a right to exist. We are all worthy, and so we should not apologize for breathing, because this just plays into feelings of worthlessness and erodes not just our self-respect, but any respect others may have for us. So we should never apologize for being who we are or for things that are beyond our control. Now, this is not the same as saying never apologize for anything. If we do something wrong and hurt someone else, we should apologize. But we do not apologize for the weather, our background, our opinions, because we respect ourselves. The S in FAST stands for stick to values. Some people are so insecure when dealing with others that they allow themselves to be used and abused. This will just reinforce feelings of worthlessness and self-hatred. However, when we become aware of our values and goals and what is really important to us at a deeper level and stick to these, we will become more grounded and self-respecting. Our values are like the roots of a tree, and so when the wind blows, the tree can sway, this way and that, but as long as it remains rooted, it will not fly away. And here, not only is it important to stick to our values, but to find others who share our values and then nurture these relationships, because we will be like two trees rooted in a common garden. The T of FAST stands for truth and accountability. It takes more brain power to lie than to tell the truth. And when we lie, we often dig deeper and deeper holes for us to fall in. This is why honesty really is the best policy. There are actually subconscious cues that can reveal that we are lying, and even though our conscious mind may not be aware of them, and the conscious mind of those we are lying to may not be aware of them, but at the subconscious level, we know. And this is not a good basis on which to form friendships. We do not want to have to constantly pretend, because this is so corrosive to our feelings of self-worth and self-respect. If we have made a mistake, admit it and accept the consequences. It may feel a little painful, but this is how wounds are cleansed and healed. Lying and distorting leads to infections that can fester deep down and ultimately destroy a relationship. It is also much easier to look at ourselves in the mirror when we tell the truth. This also has a magical effect, because the more we accept the consequences for our behavior, the better our behavior becomes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has wronged someone else. And ultimately, we want friends and relationships that are built on openness and honesty. And the way to do that is to be open and honest. We now come to the give skills. These skills are designed to get us to focus on others and find that dialectical sweet spot where we balance our own needs and desires with their needs and desires, especially with friends, family, and partners. This is one of the keys to developing healthy relationships that are grounded in mutual respect, because we validate both ourselves and those we interact with. If we behave like a doormat, we will just attract people who will walk all over us. And if we walk all over people, we will only ever attract doormats. Whereas if we focus on mutuality, on giving and receiving, and making sure our needs are fulfilled while helping others fulfill theirs, our ability to attract the right people into our life will increase. And so when FAST skills, that is, fair, apologies not needed, stick to values, truth and accountability, are dialectically balanced with give skills, healthy, affirming relationships are sure to follow. Give stands for genuine, interested, validate, and easy manner. So the G of give stands for genuine. People generally recoil from insecure people. We can sense, especially at non-verbal, subconscious levels, when people are being fake, and instinctively keep away from them unless we are so broken and needful or so manipulative that we try to use them. This is why it is important to be honest, sincere, and genuine, because no one likes phonies. We can build a life if we act and pretend to be something that we are not, but it will not have solid foundations and will be like a house of cards that can easily be knocked down in the right wind. And if we build a relationship by acting, we will have to maintain that act to keep it going. And it takes far more energy to pretend than it does to be real. But when we build it on a solid foundation, when we are real and genuine with others, when we both value ourselves and them, we will bring incredible stability to our life and our relationships, and they will become fruitful. And it is far easier to get others to treat us with respect when we treat them with respect and demonstrate the way we want them to behave with us by behaving this way with them. And we do this by being honest, genuine, and sincere. If we want to attract a real friend, we must be a real friend. The I of give stands for interested. One problem we make when communicating with others is talking too much about ourselves, especially when we feel broken and confused. Unfortunately, this is a poor way to make friends and connect with other people. We may feel broken and hurting inside and attempt to reach out to others in order to feel a little less lonely and a little less isolated. But unless we try to connect with the other person and take time to listen to them and show interest in them, our efforts will most likely fail. This is why it is important to consciously learn to focus on them, to actively listen to what they are saying and reword what they said in order to demonstrate we were paying attention. We can even practice this at a subconscious level by engaging in certain forms of nonverbal behavior, such as making appropriate eye contact, subtly mimicking their movements, so that if they move an arm, we move a hand in a similar way, and demonstrate to their subconscious mind that we are listening and paying attention to them at a deeper level. It also helps to learn how to consciously control our movements so that we sit or stand in an open and relaxed manner, smile a lot, especially when it is appropriate, and project warmth and friendliness. Furtive eye movements and wooden and unwieldy posture, inappropriate eye contact and forced smiles send a subconscious signal of awkwardness and discomfort. Rapport is a skill, and like all skills, it can be practiced, and through practice, we master it. And when we develop rapport with others by showing interest in them, not just through our words and conversation, but through our manner and behavior, through showing both verbal and non-verbal interest, others will magically warm to us. The V in give stands for validate. Validation is an act of non-judgmental mindfulness. It requires us to pay attention to someone else's thoughts and feelings without judging or criticizing them. It requires us to be open and non-judgmental when they are sharing their feelings and experiences. This has also been referred to as active listening, which we have briefly touched on. Active listening involves rephrasing what someone said and feeding it back to them. And this is so important because it demonstrates we were actually paying attention to what they were saying and validating it. And here it is important not to take the conversation away from them and use this as an opportunity to talk about ourselves. Of course, it is important to remember that friendships should be built on mutuality, and it should not be about us or them, but us and them. If we make it too much about them, they may wonder what we are selling, or else treat us like a doormat. Also keep in mind that validating is not necessarily about fixing. This is a fundamental problem men have when talking with women. A woman talks about how nasty her boss was at work, and the man makes suggestions on how to fix it. But more often than not, she is not looking for a solution, but simply to have her feelings validated. Alternately, a man often talks about a particular problem not because he wants to be told how to solve it, but just to be encouraged that he already has all of the skills he needs to solve it and to trust that inner wisdom. The E of give stands for easy manner. If we go to a coffee shop or some place where friends meet and watch how they interact with each other on a non-verbal level, we will notice that good friends almost seem to dance with each other at the non-verbal level. One gently moves forward as the other moves back. One speaks and the other smiles. One says something and the other opens their eyes wider, not only smiling with their lips, but smiling with their eyes. They demonstrate a relaxed, easy confidence when they are with each other, and the non-verbal flow moves back and forth. They do not hold their bodies rigid or make too little or too much eye contact or keep their arms and legs tightly crossed, but have an easy manner. This brings us to the next skill set, using the acronym Dear Man. So far, we have discussed fast skills and the need to develop interpersonal skills that reinforce our sense of self-worth and self-respect using an acronym. For fair, apologies not needed, stick to values, truth, and accountability. Then we discussed give skills that teach us how to focus more on others, using the acronym as a mimetic to remind us to be genuine, interested, validate, and act in an easy manner. The final set of interpersonal skills, Dear Man, brings the focus back on us and getting our needs and wants met. Something that involves learning to say no and setting appropriate boundaries so that we do not get used and abused. In effect, these skills will teach us how to be more assertive when we relate to others. But again, keep in mind that there is a dialectical tension involved here because we have to learn to strike the right balance between being too assertive and not being assertive enough, between making sure our own needs are met while also helping others to meet their needs so that relationships stop being lopsided and become a win-win situation. Here it is important to recognize we all have limitations and that others are not mind readers and are often a little too caught up in their own life to read between the lines. This means that there are times it is important to tell others how we feel and let them know what is going on inside of ourselves. And here it becomes important to learn to say no and set boundaries, but in an open and respectful way. If we give too much, we will attract people who take too much. Unfortunately, here it is worth noting, this happens all too often with those who are closest to us, such as parents or siblings, family, friends, and even partners. And they have grown used to stepping over our boundaries and taking advantage of our generosity so much that they view it as their right to do so. So it is important to learn to be gentle in our firmness and understanding of others when we need to say no. In other words, to act in a mature and responsible fashion. It is also important to recognize that some people just have trouble respecting boundaries, especially when we begin to enforce them and learn to say no. And while it may seem easier to just give in, this is the wrong thing to do. Unfortunately, this can lead to conflict and others trying to undermine us. So sometimes it is better for us to let go and start over, recognizing that change does not happen right away, and it takes time to not only learn these skills, but to grow skillful in using them. DEAR Man is an acronym for describe, express, assert, reward, mindful, appear confident, and negotiate. The D of Dear Man stands for describe. This involves being like an old-fashioned reporter. As Dr. Marsha Linehan says, we must learn to describe what we observe in a matter-of-fact way by observing who, what, and where, outlining the situation in question as best as we can in a non-judgmental way. Perhaps we think we should be treated better, have our needs met, need to say no, or set boundaries. So learning how to describe the situation with as much objectivity as we can is the first step in asserting ourselves. So for instance, if someone wants us to do something we do not want to do, we should objectively describe what it is they want us to do and then list the reasons why we must say no. Perhaps someone wants us to do them a favor, but if we do, it will prevent us from doing something that we want to do. It could even be that this person is always asking us to do things and there is no mutuality in the relationship because they never reciprocate and do anything for us. And so by describing the situation, it is like we are taking an inward step back and seeing things in perspective. It could also involve a situation where we need to set boundaries. Perhaps they simply want us to come to their party, but we are in recovery and know there will be alcohol and drugs there, and we do not want to be in a situation where we may be tempted to relapse. The E of Dear Man stands for express. This next step is optional depending on the situation. Using our last example, perhaps we do not want the other person to know we are in recovery. Though if it does not matter, then express our feelings and concerns so that the other person can understand our position. And here, it is also important to recognize that certain people will glibly counter our objections and attempt to use our words against us. In this case, all we can do is be firm and resolute and keep the reasons to ourselves. The A of Dear Man stands for assert. It is important for us to have a goal and know what it is we want. Perhaps it is to have a certain need met, to say no, or to set a boundary, and then assert this. If someone wants us to stop by the liquor store on our way home and we do not want to be tempted, we should say so and assert ourselves. If our partner wants us to go with them when they visit their mother and she has a habit of being mean to us and undermining our confidence, we need to be upfront and assert our right to say no. The R of Dear Man stands for reward. People respond much better to carrots than sticks. So if possible, let others know what's in it for them. Give them a chance to feel positive about what we want and to respect our decision. Perhaps we always end up getting into a huge fight after we visit our partner's mother because our partner does not stand up for us, and so we sulk and do not talk to each other for days. And so, if we do not go with them, we can still have that quiet dinner later that night. Of course, there will be times we need to focus on the stick and explain the consequences. If someone asks us for money and we had to bug them over and over the last time they borrowed money from us, then remind them. If they persist and make all sorts of promises, we might need to remind them that promises are nothing when they have a proven track record of behaving otherwise. The M of Dear Man stands for mindful. Sometimes it is necessary to remain mindful of our goal, whether it is to say no, set a boundary, or fulfill a need, and then hold firm. This has been described as the broken record approach, because in the days of vinyl, sometimes a song would get stuck in one groove and loop over and over. So when others use deflection or one of the many sleight-of-mouth techniques, it may be necessary to calmly and mindfully repeat our request or state our limitation over and over. No, I will not go to your mother's because she is mean to me. No, I will not go to your mother's because she is mean to me. Here, the need to do so with mindful awareness is the key, because not only does mindful awareness allow us to inwardly detach and see the situation more objectively, it helps prevent us from overreacting and getting too emotional. It also allows us to be more aware of what the other person is doing so that we do not get tricked or worn down because we are mindfully holding on to our own goal. The final A of Dear Man stands for appear confident. It is important to stay in control and not reveal any weakness or hesitancy. If we get angry or appear unsure or as if we will crack under pressure, this gives the other person something they can use against us. Certain people will even deliberately attempt to rattle us and throw us off balance. So learning how to act confidently and appear in control is very important. And even if we do not feel this way on the inside, it will really help if we have an assertive tone in our voice and stand in a confident pose, make eye contact, and move in a calm and deliberate manner, so that subconsciously and at the non-verbal level, we project a certain aura. Now keep in mind that this may require skill and practice, and doing such things as role-playing with a friend beforehand so that we can strike the right pose. The final N in Dear Man stands for negotiate. Sometimes the only way forward is to recognize that there is a dialectical trade-off between getting our needs met and the other person getting their needs met. And rather than hitting an impasse, we may have to negotiate and find some sort of middle position. Sometimes learning how to actively listen and then turning it back on the other person is all it takes, Perhaps saying something like, "This is what I need from this situation and this is what you need. So how can we strike a compromise so that we both get something?" Learning how to access the mindfulness skill of wise mind can also really help in this situation, because it will allow us to step back, gain perspective, and see the situation as non-judgmentally as we can. We might even have to do something for them now in exchange for them doing something for us later. And if they ultimately renege on the deal, remind them of this the next time we are in a similar situation and clearly describe the consequences of their behavior. Using a previous example, perhaps saying that we will go and visit their mother, but only if they stand up for us and are ready to walk out and end the visit if she refuses to stop misbehaving.